In this video, part 3 on post-traumatic growth, I'm going to begin to match my grief journey to the previous articles, the studies on PTG. What I want to do is bring my perception, and it's observational, obviously, and it's personal, and it's my lived experience. I'm going to try to bring this together to the underpinnings of post-traumatic growth so you all can see, you all can understand where post-traumatic growth may fit in, whether you're looking to do some of the things in post-traumatic growth, or if it's just occurring, you can see the science behind it. So let's go. Is what I'm doing here, this video, this series, part of post-traumatic growth? Is it reappraisal, rumination, an exercise? I think it's a testimony to PD of post-traumatic growth. That post-traumatic growth happens after the trauma of losing a loved one. I'm calling out to those in grief that there is a path forward, where your memories will speak to one another to create a new understanding of love. That is a healing love, that is grounded in some science. My story, particular to post-traumatic growth, started well before reading the literature. And this is not an amazing unicorn, pixie dust, Pollyanna view of my growth and recovery. In hindsight, my time since Donna's death has many of the attributes of post-traumatic growth. And correlation is causation. In the previous pieces on post-traumatic growth, one of the attributes of post-traumatic growth was openness to new experiences. Yes, I was and am driven to learn and understand. I read, I listen, I learned. I allowed light to enter my grief wound. I learned if I close myself up in my loss, I lost the chance to learn about us, to learn about Donna, to learn more about who we were, who we are. Just to be curious about your loss on all levels. That's the openness. I think that curiosity that we have toward our grief can give us a lot of knowledge and can help us move toward healing. Another attribute of post-traumatic growth that I talked about in the previous videos was hardiness and a sense of coherence. I was committed to challenge myself, to learn more. I took control over my learning. I wanted to know more, to understand. Less about grief, more about Donna. I lost her. Donna was a mystery, and later on when I talk about the book, we'll see how the book helped me to learn more. The only way I was going to travel through my grief, I took control of, just as I took control of her caregiving. I was able to comprehend, manage, and find meaning in my grief. That was my sense of coherence. That was my hardiness. I wanted to take control of my grief, though, in all truth, it hurt like hell. Dispositional optimism. Not me. I'm a guy who the glass is half empty and that clear liquid in it is poison. But here in my grief journey, it was different. I was problem focused. The problem I wanted to solve was Donna. This optimism, and we can call it optimism because I was searching, is directed and did direct my personal growth. Hard to imagine being optimistic about her death and having growth. It was about her, and that's where I grew. My optimism was I was going to learn about her. So I was predisposed to that, not because of who I am or what I am, because I'm not optimistic. I'm a cynic. It was in my grief, and it was about Donna. Internal locus of control. I used my personal resources, listed here, shown in the previous videos on post-traumatic growth. It gave me an ability to cope with my loss better. It gave me the understanding that I perceived I was going to learn about Donna and us, and that perception became a reality. That internal control I took became less a perception I was going to learn something and more a reality that I did learn something. I became more, or saw myself more, becoming the person Donna loved into being. A little late for her, but it happened. Positive reappraisal. This is kind of a strange one. I think it is part of it. I know as I kept learning, I kept growing, I kept reading, I kept understanding my loss, I kept discovering more about Donna as I ruminated and read. What I was doing and what this was offering me was positive. I came away being more positive about what happened, less struggling over her death, but more positive. But let me be clear, in no way this positiveness, and it's not positive that her death made me something new, because I would trade in a heartbeat to have her back, to have dinner with her, and less being more positive about me. I am second fiddle to Donna. I am second fiddle to my life. But my positive reappraisal kept me going forward to feel I'm learning something here. I'm growing. I'm healing. I'm not perfect, but I'm here. Sense making and the quest for meaning. All of the above in the previous videos on post-traumatic growth ad nauseum is my adaptation to loss, is my walking with my grief, of being part of me. It is associated with the perception of that. Post-traumatic growth is a part of this. Let me quote what one paper said, which sort of sums this up. The quest for meaning seems to be evolved in post-traumatic growth, but post-traumatic growth is not necessarily linked to having found meaning. I did the work. I found some meaning, and I'm still pulling that meaning together. I'm trying to put the puzzles of it together. I put the puzzles of Donna together, of us, but I'm still trying to go through and learn more. Rumination. That's what I'm doing. I'm ruminating. I'm always thinking about it, but it's not all that bad. It's kind of mitigated itself over time. Yes, I have measured not just my grief, but a huge compendium of reading and writing, nearly to a fault. My lens is grief focused, and all of that focus returns to Donna. Her death was my loss. We remain unfinished. What is, what isn't, what could have been. And no, not complicated grief or need for closure, just a joy in learning, and tears at times. Every day I learn and I grow. That will never overcome my loss, but it gives my deep, dark moments some light, just a little bit of light. And doing these videos, perhaps I can help others. I think they help me more than they help others. Spirituality and religious coping. The spiritual attribute of post-traumatic growth was moderately predictive with positive changes. I began and I returned to church after Donna's diagnosis. And after Donna's death, I did Bible study just to do it. The community aspect that I got from Trinity Church in Manhattan, which is a large historic church down on Wall Street, with the choir, the congregants, the Bible study, gave me a moment, that hour and a half, those 2 hours, where I was calmed. My mind was I don't want to say blank as much as it allowed things from the periphery of my consciousness to enter me. And there was some growth from that. Pre-trauma growth and post-trauma growth. So there is some aspect of it for me, and I think for many of us. Religious coping. This attribute, according to the literature, was a strong predictor of post-traumatic growth. Religious coping and religion as part of your life for those who were engaged in religion gave them a more positive growth after the death, after the trauma. It helped. I know Donna would die soon when she was diagnosed. I mean, it was true. Stage 4 cancer. There was no happy ending. And in some way, my religious coping fits with this view of the afterlife. And not that I'm highly religious, but religion is there in my life. And I will say this, I hold true. Donna, are you waiting for me? Soon, Donna, soon. Acceptance coping. This attribute is small, but a significant predictor for post-traumatic growth. And again, let me come back and repeat this. It's worth repeating. Post-traumatic growth after a death of a loved one. I accepted there was not a happy ending here. There would not be. Maybe some denial was going on. Still, you'll find me in the morning. Still, you'll find me at times saying, Donna, as I call out her name in plaintive tones. That's part of my accepting, part of my coping. She's not here. I can still call out to her. I accept what I have as much as I accept what I don't have. That is my coping, and that is part of what post-traumatic growth does. And maybe it can be part of you. Early on, I could not accept she was gone. There was that vacuum. There was that negative space. But I became to accept and began to cope with the acceptance that she was dead. Post-traumatic growth may not be necessary for recovery after a traumatic loss. I think all loss is traumatic of a loved one. But in my view, albeit 20/20 hindsight, it presents an interesting and important model that warrants consideration and further studies which these authors are doing. And there's, as I said in video 1, there are thousands and millions of more articles on it. We may heal from grief trauma because unknown to us, we are accessing those post-traumatic growth attributes. Or if we take a look at post-traumatic growth, we can boost those attributes in our life so we can heal, so we can come to not closure, but to be able to walk with our grief, our loss, in such a way that we become inspired, we become more positive, we become more committed to the memories of what was. I'm a firm believer in that the memories of our loved ones is what's important that we carry with us. Let me share maybe a funny story that I heard a long time ago. So there's this psychological experiment being done. 2 children were put in a room with about 10 inches of horse shit. One child was cowering in the corner, just frightened, scared. It was dirty, smelly. And the other kid was digging holes, just digging holes, kept digging and digging and digging. The experiment ended. The children were brought out. The child that was digging was asked, "What are you doing? Didn't you find this awful? Didn't you weren't you repulsed by it?" And the child looked at him and he said, with all this horse poop in there, I know there's a pony somewhere. I'm going to look for it. And I think that's what I ultimately am trying to attribute to post-traumatic growth. That ultimately, if we look at the attributes of it, even in our own world, we don't know anything about post-traumatic growth. If we attack our grief, if we look at it, measure it, read about it, talk about it, we are looking for that pony. And you know what? It's there. In our memories, in our life, we can walk forward, we can live with it. We can live with our loss in such a way that it becomes something within us that is positive. Perhaps, whether it's post-traumatic growth or just plain old stubbornness and desire to climb out of the pain, looking for that pony within the shitstorm of our life after loss may yield results, may yield, as I said, some meaning and purpose. I'm not positive because I'm a negative person, but I am finding that I'm becoming more of who Donna loved into being. And that carries its own pain because she will never benefit from that. We were unfinished, and as I grow, the unfinished is much more painful. But I think talking about this and talking about my loss and talking about post-traumatic growth comes back to something C.S. Lewis said in his essay on grief. 1/2 of every couple will suffer a traumatic loss. That's a fact. That's happening. Perhaps what we do here, perhaps what I'm doing here, perhaps our growth, as we try to bring more and more people to us, those of us who are talking about grief, all the books that are written, we will end up helping others to walk along with their grief. So let me just ask, did you come away with anything from these videos on post-traumatic growth? New thoughts, ideas for yourself? Was there hope? Was it meh? And as usual, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think, share, that'd be nice, share. Anyway, thank you all. Peace out.